Okay, so today this marks the 48th episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters, and I mean recently I've really been enjoying making these videos. You guys have been asking really good myths, and I mean you guys have yet to fill a like goal that I've set. So today I'm gonna set a like goal of 10,000 likes. That would be pretty insane if you do hit that, and also if you guys do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes, go down in the comments below right now and drop a quick comment of your myth for a pretty good chance to have it featured. Also guys, for when I do hit episode 50 of the Fortnite Mythbusters, I will be featuring a lot of you guys on it for all of the support recently and just keeping this series alive, since you guys are basically the ones who keep it running with your guys' myths. So if you guys do want to be featured in that video, go down below and drop a comment of your IGN. I'll be adding a ton of you guys, and you might receive an invite very soon to a game. Anyways guys, without further ado, let's begin today's episode. Jumping straight into the first myth. The first myth is, what happens when you fly a plane over a geyser? Now surprisingly, this myth actually got a ton of attention since it got over 400 likes. In game, when I tested this myth out, of course you can't get planes in the regular island because of course they vaulted that crop because everybody hated it. Luckily, it is still in creative mode, so I did a glitch to get back to the spawn island while in creative mode and have all of the features that you do have in creative, like the AI, all of that good stuff. After doing all of that stuff and I got back to the main island, I then placed down a plane spawn and I flew over to the nearest geyser, and surprisingly the geyser actually affected the plane and totally launched the plane up into the sky, and I just kept flying away. But the geyser does give you kind of like a little bit of a boost. This is also the exact same thing that happens when you go over it with a hoverboard or even with a baller. It just kind of launches you up into the sky, and if you do fly it right, then you could use it to your advantage and possibly gain a lot of speed and make up a lot of ground very quickly. Jumping into the next myth. The next myth is, what happens if you shoot a flint knock at your feet while on the back of a quad crusher or even on a hoverboard? Will it launch you into the sky, or will it not really do anything at all? In game, when I tested this out, I tested it on a quad crusher. I first had my second account kind of drive the quad crusher around. Well, I was on the back and I shot a flint knock right at my feet, and surprisingly the flint knock pistol had no effect on my quad crusher at all. I shot it, I just kept driving as normal, and I never really could get a full effect of the recoil. I was never able to get the quad crusher to kind of bounce up into the air. So sadly, you can't really do any cool plays. I don't know why this exactly happens or why Fortnite really made it this way, but I guess they like to not have things game. Now this next myth is actually pretty interesting. This myth is, can a clinger stick to an RPG since the RPG rocket itself has a hitbox? Now of course the really only reason why you could rocket ride is because the RPG itself has a big enough hitbox for you to actually stand on top of it. Basically everything in the game has a hitbox besides just regular bullets from an AR or even a sniper. That's why clingers are able to stick onto your player, onto your walls, onto vehicles, just about everything. So can they stick onto rockets? In game, when I tested this myth out, I had my second account shoot a regular rocket while I then timed it perfectly to get a clinger to hopefully stick onto it. Sadly in game though, the clinger did not stick to the rocket. The rocket kind of just went on its own, and in replay I slowly looked at it and it definitely should have at least hit the hitbox within the range that it kind of stuck. This is a bummer and definitely a loss of potential. You could definitely pull off some really cool plays that no one else has ever done, but sadly that's not really the case this time. Jumping into the next myth. The next myth is, if your teammate dies in the center of a geyser, can you still pick up the reboot card? This is a pretty frequently asked myth, since this definitely could happen to you in a regular game. You're just kind of gliding along the way, or even you get knocked down and you go in the middle of the geyser to kind of be out of the way and have hopefully the enemy team not totally sweat you right when you die to get the loot. So you end up bleeding out on top of the geyser, right? And your reboot card's just kind of sitting right there in the direct center. Can you actually pick it up, or is the range to pick it up kind of too far? In game, when I did test this out, I had my second account go right next to a geyser. Of course, died to the fall damage since I don't want to get in the middle of the fight and have to deal with all of that crap. But anyways, I had him crawl to the center of the geyser and wait for him to finally bleed out, and when his reboot card did drop on the ground, if you do get to the right angle, you are able to pick it up. But of course you have to be kind of like on this side. You have to get lucky where the reboot card goes, because I assume if you are in the direct center, you won't have enough range to actually pick it up or get the option to at least, and your teammate from there will basically be out of the game. Jumping into the next myth is, will being in a cannon protect you from a poison dart trap or even a spike trap? Now this is actually a really good myth, and a myth that you might end up using in a regular game, especially if you do like to land in the northeast side of the map. With all of the popularity getting spike trap kills and all of these insane kills using these specific traps, if you do land in this side of the map, there's obviously a ton of cannons, and you possibly could either save your life or basically just give it away, since you don't even shoot because you're in the cannon, you know. In game, when testing this myth down, I placed down a trap. I then changed teams, that way it'll deal damage to me and actually have full effect. I then placed down a cannon and got inside of it right in front of the trap. To my surprise, this steel cannon, this cannon that is made out of just pure metal, it was unable to protect you from the spike trap. The spike trap just pierced straight through it and killed you just about instantly. Now, unlike the spike trap, the poison dart trap was actually unable to deal any damage to your player, because even if you are in front of the spike, the actual poison darts itself, it won't pierce your player, and you basically are good on that one. Overall though, you could definitely use this myth in the middle of your game, and it'll possibly save your life, and hopefully you could get that win later on. Going into the next myth is, what happens if your teammate leaves halfway through rebooting? I honestly hope this never happens to you in game, because honestly the most frustrating thing is when you wipe an entire squad and you pick up your teammate's reboot card just so you could go reboot them before you even loot at all, so they could get back in the game before it's too late. Halfway through you rebooting them, they end up leaving. Now, when I did test this out in game, I used my custom matchmaking code to get the custom match, so I don't really get surrounded by sweats the whole time. When I was just about halfway finished rebooting my teammate at the van, he then left the game, and to my surprise, it still went through with it. It basically made all of the noise. It still made me go through the entire loading process. It made everything just as if he was to be there, but sadly, his player wasn't there. He just kind of ditched out on the game, you know. Overall though, this is something good to know for when you're doing maybe random field squads or random field duos. If you feel like your teammate's not going to leave the game, and you think he's an actual genuine good person, then feel free to reboot him. If not, they're toxic, then man, screw them. Don't reboot them. I'm just kidding. Going into the next myth, this myth is, can you respawn if you die above the build limit? Surprisingly, this myth actually came up by myself. I'm pretty proud of it. I know, it's amazing. It's amazing. Whatever. So in game, when I did test this out, I got a subscriber from my Discord to help me out, as well as a good friend of mine, and we jumped into a custom matchmaking game, since of course I do have my own custom matchmaking code. Now, since the custom matchmaking lobbies aren't really like playgrounds, you can't customize it to be low gravity or anything, we had to get max wood and find impulse grenades in order to somehow launch my player above the actual sky limit to see if the respawn card will kind of stay floating. After doing this multiple times, starting up multiple more games, and kind of launching myself off of our sky barrier base multiple times with the impulse grenades, we finally came to a conclusion where if you do die above the actual sky limit, the surprising thing is that the respawn card basically just floats back down. As you can see, you see the respawn card kind of floating on top of the floor, but when I do edit the floor beneath it or even destroy the stair, the respawn card will slowly float down, and it'll stop on whatever the nearest surface is. I personally did not know that the respawn cards actually do kind of fall down in certain places, because in the middle of the fight, the last thing you really notice is basically where the respawn card is, because of course your teammate gets knocked down and you're trying to wipe the rest of the team. Jumping into the last and final myth, this myth is, if you and your teammate shoot their flint knocks at the exact same time, can you go twice as far? Now, this wasn't really a highly requested myth, but I saw one comment on my most recent video. Someone was like, I commented on the last video, sadly it didn't get featured, so hopefully it gets featured this time, and I wanted to make their day. But anyways, when I did test this out in game, you'd be surprised by the outcome. Me and my teammate, we stood right next to each other and shot at the exact same place at the exact same time, and it basically did nothing, sadly. It was still pretty cool to do though. You can't really pull off anything. It just kind of knocked you back just a regular distance it usually would with a regular flint knock pistol. That's gonna wrap up today's episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe if you are new to the channel. Comment a myth down below for a good chance to have it featured in the next or future episodes, and I will see you guys next time.